Speaking Human.
Today on Speaking Human, we forecast the 5 summer movies that will deliver the biggest returns at the box office and share our picks for the best movie posters of all time. Grab your junior mints and get ready for aliens, apes, and an entire movie about emojis. Yep, that's a thing.
Speaking Human.
Welcome to Speaking Human, where we simplify the world of marketing for humans. I'm Shad Conley, and with me is my co-host, Patrick Baby Groot Jebber. How's it going, Baby Groot?
I am Groot, which translates into, Shad, I'm raking in the dough because this franchise is killing it.
It's pretty good. I will say you don't give the emotion of those lines that Vin Diesel does. That's how I know you're not a professional actor.
Well, I'm not a professional voiceover actor.
Neither is he.
Oh, Vin Diesel's gonna come back at you, man. Did you ever see Triple X? He doesn't mess around. He snowboards out of airplanes and stuff, you know?
He's going to call us up and be like, it's about family.
It's not like he was crying there.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know how that was going to come out. The answer is not good.
It's not your best Vin Diesel.
I've never done Vin Diesel before. It was my first go at it.
You need to gargle some glass.
Need to go deeper.
Yeah.
Maybe a little louder, less sickly.
Yeah. So let's kick things off with our first big question of the show. What's the one movie you most want to see this summer? What do you think that'll be?
I think it actually wraps back around nicely because I think it's probably Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I think so. There's a few others that are in competition, but that's probably the one I'll be most likely to see or most want to see just because I really like the first one so much. That to me is the best thing that's come out of the Marvel Universe so far. So I think that's my pick. What about you?
For me, it's most definitely, it's Pirates of the Caribbean.
I figured. If that was true, I'd quit this podcast right now.
You'd be like, that's it. I can't work with you anymore. I would probably agree with you. Although, I'm interested to see what happens with Wonder Woman.
I was going to ask you about that one because I have no idea what to expect from that movie. One, because those new Batman and Superman movies have been so terrible and pretty terribly received. And two, I just wonder, I don't know what the audience is going to be like for that. Are the adolescent boys going to go to see that as well? Are young girls also going to go see that? I don't know who's going to go see that. It's kind of a mystery to me at this point.
It's going to be interesting for sure. But Guardians, it looks like the most fun you'll probably have at the theater all summer.
Yeah, which was the way the first one was. That's why I almost feel like the first one arrived. If you listen back, we even had a podcast where we kind of talked a little bit about the first movie. And I was like, kind of like I just talked about Wonder Woman. I was like, I don't know who this movie's for. I don't know if it's going to do very well. No one knows these characters. It looks weird. There's a cartoon raccoon in a tree.
I do remember that. You really did know.
I was pretty skeptical. Of it. And then it was like, a huge hit and everybody loved it and a great movie.
And I think one of the things you're seeing right now is it's influencing the other Marvel properties, like Thor's new movie has a hint of Guardians in it. Did you notice that from the trailers?
Like in terms of like sense of humor and strangeness, you mean?
Yeah. Did you notice that in the trailer?
I could see that. I didn't pick up on that, but when you mention it, I could see what you're talking about.
I think they're learning that people really like the humorous edge that Guardians has in their movie.
Yeah, probably good choice with a character like Thor too, who's kind of a joke.
Ooh, you are gonna get some backlash. Twitter,
Thor burn.
Hashtag go to hell, Shad and Speaking Human.
It's probably the Avengers character I'm the least interested in. I'm always like, Thor? Stupid. Yeah, my one thing with Guardians, though, I'm like, is it going to be a letdown, because the first one I went into with no expectations and it exceeded them. And then now this one, it's coming off of what I think is the best Marvel movie. So I think there's a good chance I'll be disappointed by it.
So you think it's going to be a little bit like Avengers?
No one knew what to expect at that point, yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely possible, But I always try to go into movies now. You have to know the movie you're seeing and just put everything aside and just have fun with it. You know what I mean? Like as I've gotten older, I try not to let the hype get to me.
Yeah, open mind, clean slate kind of thing.
Yeah, because if you let all those things affect you, you'll inevitably be let down every time.
Yeah. With movies I really want to see, like this one, I try to like avoid reviews and stuff or anything to influence me before. You know, if you or someone would see it and give me an opinion, that's one thing. But I try not to let those other things get into my head. So like, you know, somebody be like, I hated this thing about the movie. And then you go see the movie and you're just focusing on that because that person told you that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, what do you think are like are there some other interesting movies or on the list of what you would call your must-see or kind of want-to-see list?
You know, as I was looking through the list of movies for the summer, a couple that stood out to me that I didn't really anticipate wanting to see, but then as I was reading the synopsis for each one, I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. And one of them was Atomic Blonde with Charlize Theron, you know, which is set in the 80s before the fall of the Berlin Wall. And it's directed by one of the guys who co-directed the first John Wick movie, David Leitch. And it's got Charlize Theron kicking butt. I mean, need I say more?
I think I heard that referred to as the female John Wick, which sold me on it right away. So that was one of the ones I was pretty interested in. That and Baby Driver. That's from the guy who made Shaun of the Dead and Scott Pilgrim. So that should be an interesting movie, I thought. It had a really good trailer.
I did not see the trailer for that, but I also thought The Dark Tower, the premise sounds really interesting. I never read the books, but I'm going from the synopsis. And one source, when they described it as Lord of the Rings for people who prefer robots and mutants to orcs and ents. That's just a lovely description. I don't know why. It's just like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a popular series. People really love that, too. Should be an interesting one. A few others that stuck out to me. Alien Covenant is of interest to me. I know a lot of people didn't like Prometheus, but I actually like Prometheus quite a bit. So I'm interested to see that.
Yeah.
There was also Rough Night. It's got Scarlett Johansson. It sounds like The Hangover with women, basically. It sounded kind of funny to me. A couple other ones were Dunkirk, which is from the guy who made, you know, the old Dark Knight trilogy. And what's that movie with DiCaprio where everything's... You get into people's minds.
Inception.
Yeah. Should know that because everybody's like, you got to Inception them. He's got a war movie that I think should be pretty interesting just because he's got a good visual style.
Yeah. I like that they're exploring the alien universe, and for some reason, it's intriguing to me. They've released some good teaser trailer movies. Just from a marketing standpoint, they've done a really good job of trickling out these little nuggets that get people really excited about the movie and give you some backstory that you wouldn't get otherwise. So
yeah, it's almost like a preface, and it gives you those character introductions. It is an interesting approach.
Mm-hmm. I like what they've been doing with the marketing for sure on that one. Another one which I think looks visually interesting, say even beautiful, is that Valerian and the City of 1,000 Billion Trillion Planets.
Yeah. You know, that is the director of The Fifth Element, which is a movie, it's like the ideal cable movie to me. It's one of those movies that was always on and I would always watch it, you know, and at first I'm like, what the hell is this? And then you kept watching it over and over again. And you're like, I guess I like this.
Yeah. I mean, it's all very over the top in terms of special effects, but it just seems like a very beautiful movie in terms of like the colors and the cinematography. So I'd be interested to see what happens with that. I probably won't see it in the theater though.
Yeah, same. Unless it's got like really good buzz, you know, it's not like a draw you in, but it's definitely got my curiosity.
Yeah, you mean you don't want to go see Baywatch?
That was another one I was going to ask you about. That's another movie where I didn't find any of the trailers particularly funny. Yeah. But I could see that being like kind of a funny comedy if it's done right, you know what I mean? Like in a 21 Jump Street type of way.
I like that it's obviously poking fun at itself. I mean, it looks entertaining. It's going to be one of those movies I'll probably watch it when it comes out on video, and I'll probably love it because it's got The Rock and it's just stupid fun.
Yeah, The Rock in general these days is pretty enjoyable and makes almost anything better. It seems like a long shot, but I could see it being like the hit comedy of the summer.
Mm-hmm. We actually had Central Intelligence on the list last year too, I think, which did well.
Pretty well. Yeah.
But it wasn't.
Nobody really talks about it. Yeah. Yeah, you don't hear people like on a daily basis being like, remember that part in Central Intelligence?
Yeah. But it was an enjoyable movie. I did see it eventually, but again, go into it knowing that you're watching just silly comedy. So what do you think is going to be the worst movie of the summer?
It's what I call the unwanted sequels. And one of them you already mentioned was the Pirates of the Caribbean. It's a series that had maybe 1.5 good movies. You could push it to 2. But
Yeah.
they just keep going with it and going with it. I don't know. People are obviously buying tickets. But the other one that's probably the worst and makes more money is Transformers. So Transformers 5, those last Transformers movies have just been such awful, just loud noise.
Loud noise. Loud
They
noise
always make
visually.
money. I know they always make a lot of money, so they keep making them. But I just can't imagine like wanting to sit down in a theater and put myself through that.
They're loud noise visually and audibly.
I'd say every sense is affected. Taste.
You're tasting your movies now? Man, you need to
You taste like
patent
metal
that right now.
Do you have metal taste in your mouth afterward?
Rusty. I have to
Yeah.
get a tetanus shot afterwards. The Transformer movies don't bother me quite as bad as they bother you. I think they're okay, whatever. They are what they are. The Pirates of the Caribbean movie, though, I will agree with you. I think we talked about it on one of the previous podcasts. Like, I think you said, and I still quote you on this when I'm just talking to people in everyday life. I say, show me the person who wants another sequel of Pirates of the Caribbean.
There's one of you out there. Come forward.
What new are you going to show me in this that we haven't seen before? I don't need to see another skeleton pirate who's a clownfish or a octopus. I don't care. I don't care.
And Johnny Depp's shtick, the first time everybody was like, oh, it's great. And then like 5 times later, you're like, yeah, I get it. It's the same thing.
Like you said, I mean, obviously people are buying tickets to this thing. I mean, somebody's still enjoying them, I guess, because why else are they making them? But
Time to call it a day, I think. I will say in general, though, it seems like a stronger summer than last year. There's a lot more movies that I think are interesting that I would like consider going to see, whereas last year I was like, it's hard to find anything I'm interested in.
yeah, I agree with that. And there might be these little hidden gems in the summer movie box office.
A lot of potential surprise hits, I think, out there.
We'll see. Just like every other year, sometimes we're completely let down. We're like, this sucked.
Yeah, everything's terrible.
Yeah, that might just be us getting old, grumpy, and bitter.
That's true. Everything's bad. It's not like when I was a kid and we had movies like... But there's a lot of terrible movies we liked when we were kids. I'm trying to think of one and I can't.
Pretty much every movie, if you go back and watch it from when you were a kid, it's bad when you watch it as an adult. We just thought they were good back then.
Well, which is the classic aging thing. Everything was good when you were young. Everything's terrible now.
It's because we're grumpy humans. Well, in a minute, we'll share our picks for the movies we think will bank the most bucks at the box office this summer. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's sponsor is Farmers Insurance. Insurance can be confusing, overwhelming, and time-consuming. At Hire Insurance Agency, we remove the guesswork and hassle, helping you protect what matters most. We offer a wide range of auto, home, business, and life insurance policies to help you meet your specific needs. Call 844-543-3463 or visit hireinsurance.com. That's HYRE insurance.com for more information.
So we're saving the galaxy again?
Who else is gonna do it?
Awesome!
Oh, wow. I know. It almost hit me.
That was an audio clip from a trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which unofficially kicks off the summer movie season on May 5th. The first Guardians topped the domestic box office charts in summer 2014, but will the sequel repeat? We're about to tell you. So, Patrick, this is our second time trying to predict the summer box office champs, or the top 5. We did it last year, and I think we did all right for the most part. Even yours, which we thought was terrible at the time, wasn't that bad, right?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that bad. But you came in, you swooped in with your list
With my family films.
You and your family films. Although I do take some enjoyment in the fact that one of the ones on your list you hated immensely, Suicide Squad. Come on.
I think that's what I put at number 1.
Yeah, you
that's
did.
True. The movie that won my list ruined my life.
Yeah, I mean, I find satisfaction in that. So therefore, it's less of a traumatic experience for me.
All of yours were in the top 10 or close to it. The family films are what made the difference. I had like Finding Dory and The Secret Life of Pets, which were 2 like huge money makers. And you know, it's not necessarily about the movies you want to be the hits, but the movies that you think are going to make the most money, right?
Mm-hmm. That's a really hard distinction to make, you know, because you always have your biases and your prejudices going into making any list. So it's really difficult to separate yourself. And most of the time, being a marketer and everything, I get caught up a little bit in the hype of what I want to see myself, you know?
Yeah. And in general, it's just tough. You know what I mean? Because there's movies you think are going to be big hits and they end up bombing just because they're terrible movies. We never know until the end of the summer. So here's how this goes. We're going this year. We went earlier. Last year we started, I think, at the beginning of June. This year we're starting with that May 5th weekend when Guardians of the Galaxy comes off. So beginning of May until September 5th, which is the end of Labor Day weekend. That's our timeline here that we're looking at, what we consider a summer movie. Just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Pretty soon it's going to be like January to October.
Yeah.
We each have a top 5, and then we'll see at the end who has the most money in the bank from their top 5. I'll go first. So here's my top 5 box office champs for the summer in reverse order. So we'll start with number 5. At number 5, I've got Spider-Man Homecoming. This is the Spider-Man reboot. At number 4, I've got Dunkirk, which I mentioned is the war movie from the director of Inception. Number 3, our first family film, Cars 3. At number 2, Guardians Volume 2. And at number 1, another family film, because this is what happens in the summer now, people. Despicable Me 3. Coming off Despicable Me 2, which made a buttload of money. So that's my top 5, Patrick. How does it compare to yours?
Your list is really close to mine. My number 5 is War for the Planet of the Apes. Number 4 is Spider-Man Homecoming. Number 3, also your number 3, Cars. Unfortunately, that's on my list. Number 2, I've got Wonder Woman. And number 1, I've got Guardians.
Okay. So there's some similarities, but there's some big differences, especially Wonder Woman, the wild card. I've got Despicable Me 3 up there, and you've got Wonder Woman up there. So those could be the difference makers.
Going back and looking at it again, I may have put in Despicable Me in place of Cars, to be honest with you, now that I think about it. I think one of those is going to do really well. Probably Despicable Me will do better. But I will say this is where you have a huge blunder, and that is female leads. Wonder Woman's going to do great, I think.
I believe it could. It could make the same, like Batman versus Superman being like a $300 million movie, but mostly I'm not convinced it's going to be a good movie, and I think that might hurt it.
I just think people are craving lead female actresses, as opposed to their male counterparts.
And there's kind of a recent history, when you look at the Hunger Games movies or Lucy with Scarlett Johansson that have done well doing this. My trepidation does not come from that as much as it comes from Warner Brothers, DC. I mean, Suicide Squad was just so awful. And I don't know, people I feel like have been a little burned on these movies. So unless it's just a much better movie, it'll get, a certain amount of money, but to get to that next level, like where you have it as the number 2 of the summer, I think it also has to be a good movie.
Yeah, I agree. It's got to be a good movie, just like every other summer where it's too late. Like with Suicide Squad and you put it on number 1 on your list, you went and saw it, you were really hyped up about it, and you were let down, right? But by that time, it was too late. You already added to their box office numbers, right? And I think Wonder Woman, even if it was bad, is still going to do well. But yeah, I think both of those are going to be really good lists, and they're going to be... We're so close. I'm curious to see how 2 small differences are going to make in our list.
You might have to go see Wonder Woman like 12 times to pad your numbers. I agree with you. They're very close, but just different enough where these things are going to make a big difference. These little differences like Dunkirk, Despicable Me, and Wonder Woman. How these movies perform and how they place. Should be pretty interesting. So I like it. I like it a lot. It's going to be one hot summer at the box office. So anyways, next up, we're talking movie posters. But not just any movie posters. We'll share our picks for the greatest movie posters of all time.
Of all time?
What?
You're making history. You're the first to go this far into our galaxy.
From director Ridley Scott.
Here we go.
Y'all have fun.
Mankind's greatest step
Oh my God.
could be our last.
Covenant, come in. Impact casualties.
This year. Run. Alien Covenant, only in theaters.
That was an audio clip from another upcoming summer movie, Alien Covenant. That film continues exploring the universe created in the 1979 movie Alien, which has one of the most iconic movie posters ever made, featuring the stark image of a glowing green alien egg. That poster could possibly come up here as we share our top 3 movie posters of all time.
It's great to say, isn't it? Of all time. It puts so much weight on it and so much pressure, because I felt the pressure.
Did you feel pressure? I feel like there's so many good movie posters over the course of movie history. It's hard to pick.
This was a hard one. I could have gone top 80 on this one and been fine. You know, I always hate to leave things out, so this one was particularly grueling.
I'm very proud of you. I know it's hard for you to narrow lists down. Anything less than 10 makes you really anxious.
5 I can work with. 3 is pretty bad. But yeah, I found it really hard. There's just a lot out there. How did you come up with your list? Like, what was your approach to even thinking of what posters you wanted to be on here?
I have 3 criteria. Okay, I always try to break it down into like 3.
Yeah, it's good.
So number 1, it has to be visually arresting. Arresting, Shad, which means striking, eye-catching. It needed to make me stop, or at the very least, catch my eye in its hand and be like, hey, eye-catching.
I like its voice.
All right. Number 2, it had to relate to the movie and tell me something about it. We always say this. If it was artsy for the sake of artsy, it was eliminated immediately. If it didn't give me a clearer picture of what genre of the movie it represented, it was out of my list, period. I didn't even give it a second thought. And then number 3, it had to be a movie that I personally watched at some point in my life, because that's the only way I could make an informed decision about how relevant it was and how well it depicted the movie that it was made for.
That's interesting. I don't know if I totally agree with it.
Well,
My only reason being that, you know, posters in general are a marketing tool. They're designed to get you to see the movie, right? So they don't necessarily, it's not like you come out of the movie and you're like, that poster lied to me.
Hey, you thought the Suicide Squad movie posters, they got you in there, and then you were pissed.
That's different.
See? Real
that
life.
was fraud. That's different.
You should definitely have a class action lawsuit against the Suicide Squad movie.
Trust me, I'm working on it.
That was totally misleading.
You made it look good. Have you watched that yet?
Yeah, I did. I actually just saw it. I have to agree with you. It was
Pretty bad.
yeah,
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I've railed on that one enough. It's because it's only been a year now.
Can't let it go.
Well, it's you always bring it up. You know, spark the flame again.
You're a fire pit of hatred when you think of that movie.
Every once in a while, you know, I'll see like it's on HBO or something. I just grit my teeth and start turning all red.
Anyway, so go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily have the criteria like I've used before. It was more just, all right, where do I even start with this? First thing was memory. What posters immediately stuck out in my mind? Which ones do I remember? Can I like immediately picture when I think of movie posters? And some of that's subjective, you know, obviously, as it's going to be. And then I also did some research, you know, looked at a bunch of those lists of the best, or just throughout time what people say are some of the best posters. I did try to stay focused on what were like the original posters. You know how some movies have like 25 posters? I was trying to focus on like the ones when they first came out you would see in the theater and stuff like that. I will say my picks turned out to be more traditional than I thought they would be.
It's very difficult because there's so many good movie posters over the course of movie history. The thing that I had a difficult time with was, you know, there were a lot of really old movies that I love the movie posters from like the 30s, 40s, 50s. And I haven't seen all those movies, but man, the movie posters were awesome back then. Beautifully well designed. It was hard to pick. And that's why I had to have the criteria of seeing the movie helped me narrow down my list because, you know,
That's definitely true. I mean, those older posters have a real style to them. Just their use of color and the way everything was done is pretty interesting. You know, that's a good starting point. We'll use that as a springboard to just dive right in. We'll just start with our number 3s and move forward. So do you want to kick it off, Patrick?
So my number 3 is the 1933 movie King Kong. And this poster has it all. It has a giant ape on a skyscraper holding a tiny woman swatting down airplanes. It's the quintessential movie poster of the time period. It was Beauty who killed the beast. King Kong in big bold letters, almost screaming at the viewer in 3D. And what makes this movie poster so great, one of the things that I looked for in all the movie posters that I picked, you don't need a lot of subtext on the poster, and it doesn't have any.
That is a great pick and a surprising pick in that also my number 3 on my list, King Kong from 1933. Isn't
Shut
that
up.
Crazy?
Is it really?
Yeah. I swear to God. I saw a few different versions of the King Kong original posters. All of them I thought stand out to me. The one, like you were talking about, where he's on the top of the Empire State Building holding the plane and Fay Ray. And then there was another one where he's in the jungle holding a girl and like the natives are running from him. They all have that King Kong in big letters. And there's a third one where he's like surrounded by fire. She's tied to posts in front of him. All great, and all have that old-timey thing you were talking about, that comic book look with the bright colors pop out at you, especially the image of this giant ape at a time well before, you know, the evolution of special effects. Just had to be so crazy, and they're such good posters, and they tell a whole story within them. I just think they're masterful. I think it's crazy we both put that on there.
I mean, we do have an affinity for monster posters. And you see it today, movie posters that are taking on some elements from the movie posters of old, as I would call them.
Yeah, going back to that style.
Yeah, because they're so well crafted, you know, and I love typography on movie posters.
Yeah, and King Kong's definitely got a great one. It's big. It's like it's coming at you.
Yeah, all hand-drawn. Everything is hand-drawn back then, you know. That's how they had to tell the story.
Yeah, the old monster movie posters, there's a lot of very good ones. I just think King Kong stands probably at the top of that, much like the Beast himself.
Yeah, so that was our number 3. Now, my number 2 is, you're going to laugh, it is also a sad fact that I did see this movie.
Don't say Suicide Squad.
It is Suicide Squad. Number 2 on my list is Showgirls from 1995.
It is funny, but I immediately know the poster.
You know the poster, right? So this
Yep.
poster, it has curves, literally. It's one of the more sensual posters out there. I think it hints at the nakedness in the movie because it's about showgirls in Vegas, and there are naked women in the movie. There are naked women in Vegas and in the movie. But I like the clean lines and how the black background in the poster feels like a revealing dress that the woman in the poster is wearing, who is Elizabeth Berkley from Saved by the Bell. Remember her?
Better known as Jesse Spano.
Yeah. A hint of subtext, which is leave your inhibitions at the door. The show is about to begin. And the typography is on either side of the Showgirls movie title. It's just a perfect poster for the movie. Not saying that it was a perfect movie, though. It is what it is.
Yeah, widely regarded as one of the worst movies of all time, but also then re-enjoyed as one of these so bad it's good type movies, right? But yeah, I definitely remember it, and I remember it from, you know, probably when I was like 12 or whenever that movie came out. It's interesting. The way it's put together is pretty interesting, I will say, because it's one of those things you have to look twice at because it's kind of weird. It's one of those things you look at it one way, you're like, all right, if she's wearing something that's covering it up, but you look at it another way and she's almost like this curved pencil person, right? It kind of hits on the weirdness of the movie in general, you know, like the trashiness, but they were going for something better than that at that time, I think.
They weren't going for a trashy movie. I think they were going for something shocking. That was sort of around the time that Basic Instinct and those movies came out. A lot of sexual thrillers that were happening at the time. And this kind of
pushing the boundaries a little.
Yeah, it kind of falls into that genre, I think. But the design of it is wonderfully done. Better than the movie itself.
Surprising, you know, not a terrible pick. I will say there's no other poster like that. We could probably agree on that. You're not going to find another poster that looks like that one.
Yeah. Well, you might, but what's on your list? What's number 2?
So going from one of the biggest pieces of garbage of all time to one of the most iconic and beloved films of all time. Yes, I'm talking about Star Wars. I'm almost embarrassed to have it on my list because it's so easy, but the poster is so good. It's a poster I used to have on my wall. The one I'm talking about, it's got space, it's got all the characters. Luke's in the front, strangely enough, holding a blaster. Darth Vader's in the back. You have Princess Leia, Han. All the characters are represented on there. It's a style of poster I like in general. A few other examples. Big Trouble in Little China has a similar poster. Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of has a similar poster where you get taken into this world, and it's just really well done. I knew I had to put this style of poster on here in one form or another. What better way to do it than Star Wars? It's one of the original, one of the best. The original Star Wars posters, all the originals are pretty good. I almost went with the Empire one because I probably personally like that a little better. But I think the first one just captures what I'm talking about, that style of poster that's been done 1,000 times. I don't know if Star Wars was the first to do it, but it's one of the ones I remember most.
That is one on my runners-up list. It got beat out by Showgirls. But
as many things do.
But I like that they incorporate so many elements of the movie into the poster. It becomes a Where's Waldo of the movie poster world, and that when you stand and you look at it, you go, oh, I didn't see that before, because there's so much in it. So it is a great movie poster. It does something from my criteria, sort of alienated it. Pun intended.
Well done.
Because it needed to tell the story very quickly. And that one, even though it is simple and you quickly understand what it is, it also takes some time to really soak it all in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily call it simple because it is, like you say, pretty detailed, but it gives you a glimpse inside this universe enough that I think you stop and explore it, and then you get that idea. It isn't necessarily one of these glimpse and get it all Showgirls style.
Yeah, no, that's a great pick, though.
Yeah,
Not only
you can't
was
go
it
wrong picking Star Wars. Nobody's going to turn on me for picking Star Wars.
No, they'll turn on me for picking Showgirls, though, for sure.
They'll turn on you for picking Showgirls, and they'll turn on me for, knocking Thor.
You've saved yourself. You've redeemed your standing.
It's the only reason I picked it.
Like, I just need to come back from that horrible nightmare. So, number one on my list, similar to the King Kong poster, almost certainly more terrifying. The original Jaws movie poster from 1975 made people cringe. The thought of this great white shark, this giant great white shark, coming to the surface to attack the swimmer is pretty much every human's worst nightmare, at least when you're in the ocean. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. We've all had that feeling in the ocean where you wonder for a minute, you're like, oh God, is there a shark in here? Something touched my leg. I think it's a shark.
Every time I'm in the water. I mean, they did a great job of playing on those fears and really didn't need much else. And even though they had a little bit of subtext there, they didn't need it to sell or describe the movie. You know, I mean, in the subtext, it wasn't even relevant. You know, the terrifying motion picture from the terrifying #1 bestseller.
Don't even need that, right?
No, you don't even need that. You know, it stands on its own with that giant shark just headed right for the surface. It's just so well done. In a lot of ways, like King Kong for me, you know, I mean, it's just this monstrous beast, and it's scary. It's more real, right? Because who knows? That thing could be living under the surface of the water. I don't know. And so it has a terrifying factor to it.
Yeah, this is crazy. It's my #1 too. I don't feel like anything else is close to it. It's just so perfectly put together and simplistic and just compels emotion immediately when you look at it. Just the way it's framed so you're looking like you're underwater. You know, you can see underwater. You see the lady swimming above the water. She doesn't know the shark's underneath her, but you do. That's what any good suspense movie does, right? Gives you this little information that this person doesn't know that creates terror and suspense, and that's right there for you. That image does exactly what the movie does, which is make you a little bit scared of the water.
And it made lots of people afraid of the water. Still does to this day. And that movie poster had the same effect as the movie, you know? Like every time you see it, it reminds you of how unbelievably scary the ocean can be.
And how big that shark is, more than any other movie poster. Even these other ones, you know, we've had on the list, just really captures the movie.
Yeah.
Here's the core of why this movie exists and why you want to see it and what you're going to get from it right there with that image. And I agree with you. You know, they have that little tagline up top, which is just alluding to the novel, because a lot of people, I guess, at the time it was a best-selling novel. But you don't even need it to get sold on what's happening in the poster.
No, you don't.
One last thing about the Jaws poster I don't think we totally hit on is the font they use for the Jaws title. In big red, within the sky. The J kind of looks like a hook a little bit. Also a nice touch.
It's crazy to me that we both had movie posters. And to our listeners, we never, with this list, we did not go over this list beforehand. So out of all the best of movie posters of all time, we picked 2 of them were the same on our list. That's incredible.
Which is surprising. I thought there was a chance that might happen with Jaws. I was not expecting it with King Kong, I'll say that. And of all the lists we've done, our lists will occasionally have one overlap. They're very rarely this similar. And this is the one where we probably had the most things to choose from.
How many thousands and thousands and thousands of movie posters, and the fact that we've come back to these 2.
Yeah, and Jaws was the first one, even when we were talking about this list, the first one that popped into my mind. Immediate to me.
Like I said, I go back, there's movie posters back then. I just love them. They're so good. Without computers, designers had to work harder, I feel like, to make something visually interesting.
Yeah, and I think in general, and one thing I noticed doing this was the ones that are photography or more realistic images, I tend to stay away from. The ones that really grabbed me were these hand-drawn, more comic book style ones.
They're visually arresting, right? Like I said at the beginning, visually arresting.
They put me in cuffs every time.
They catch your eyes. Literally, they hold on to them. I don't know why eye-catching.
I like the image of somebody grabbing your eyes and holding your eyeballs in their hand and making them look at something.
That would be a scary movie.
That'd be a good poster, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Some good stuff there, though. Some good ones on the list.
A lot of great ones out there. Amazing list. I can't believe we had 2 of the same things. Madness.
We made history today. Summer movie marketing history.
Yeah.
And on that note, let's get our final nugget of human wisdom.
Today's words of human wisdom come from Saul Bass, a legendary graphic designer who created logos for many big brands, along with designing both movie credit sequences and movie posters. His unique minimalist style produced iconic posters for movies like Vertigo, The Shining, and Anatomy of a Murder. Here are 2 insightful quotes from Mr. Bass, relevant to any business working to establish a brand identity or bring a new marketing campaign to life. Number 1, sometimes when an idea flashes, you distrust it because it seems too easy. You qualify it with all kinds of evasive phrases because you're timid about it. But often, this turns out to be the best idea of all. Number 2, try to reach for a simple, visual phrase that tells you what the picture is all about and evokes the essence of the story. So those are a couple of good quotes that I think hit on exactly what we like in movie posters, or what we're looking for. Definitely goes along with your criteria, Patrick.
It's one of the biggest challenges in design.
Yeah, and I think it's the same with writing, too. When you're stuck and maybe you're not totally clear on the idea, you tend to add more to fill it out, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's just keep adding more, rather than pulling away and zooming in on that core thing you want to express. That's one of the big challenges. You end up adding clutter, adding excess noise, just trying to be clearer when you should be going in the other direction.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens, and that's part of the process. People who are really good and skilled at what they do in the creative profession, the really good ones know to peel away everything that's not necessary. So the next step in that evolution is take everything you can away without destroying the core message. So you first have to get the clutter sometimes before you could take it away, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. For me, that's part of the process. That's how you find the clarity. Working on it and digging at it and adding and adding and adding, and then you just strip away and get down to that essence, when things are working perfectly anyways. It's part of the process, so good thing to keep in mind there.
Wonderful nugget of human wisdom, my friend.
Thank you.
So that's it for today's episode, everyone. You can find current and past episodes of the podcast on speakinghuman.com. You can also listen to and follow the podcast on SoundCloud.
Tweet us your thoughts on today's show and let us know your all-time favorite movie poster, or even your top 3, at speaking_human on Twitter. That's at speaking_human on Twitter. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Speaking Human. Catch you then, humans.
Speaking Human.